back to the Inspired Magazine podcast. We got a new week and therefore we have a new inspiring story to tell. And I have the pleasure today to talk to Felix Nieder. Some of you who are joining us from Europe might already know him as a German model, book author, and TV host. And Felix became known through his nomination for GQ Men of the Year 2021 and has been the most booked female male model in Germany since 2022 and first gender fluid model. One of the reasons why I invited Felix on the podcast today is because I think it's so interesting to look behind the scenes of someone who's already pretty successful overseas and made a name for himself, only to switch everything up and move abroad and start everything from scratch in a new country. But before we dive deeper in this story, I would like to welcome Felix to the podcast. I'm really happy to have you on today, and I can't wait to hear everything about your deep secrets.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
So, Felix, I think we have a lot in common, actually. I'm not a model, though. I am not,
You could be.
thank you. But I think, as someone who moved from Germany, I am German too, you are German too, and then we have, that kind of like experience and expectation that German society puts up on ourselves. You have to go like a certain route, you have to have like a certain education and blah, blah, blah. And I think both of us went into industries slash niches that are not very common and count in Germany as very exotic, right? So there's obviously a lot to the story, but I would love to start with you. Just tell us a little bit about your background. What did you do before this whole model thing became a thing, and what made you go into it?
So I really did like a very typical thing for being a German. So I just went to school and graduated, and I went to college, university, and just studied law, which is like very basic for Germans. Like lots of people
Very
study
dry.
law. It's very dry, and honestly, like I was always the perfect student, and my mom was always like very happy that I followed that way. But I found out very quick for me that it was too straight, too direct, too dry, what you said. And I
Mhm.
felt sometimes a little bit bored that I wanted to have something more extraordinary. So that is the reason why I was very happy when I got the opportunity to go to LA and America.
So, but you started already as a model in Germany before
Yeah.
you had a name or like build something in the US. So, when did you go to your first audition, and who like was it you saying like I really want to do this? This sounds so fun, or were you discovered like typically in a mall or something? How did this work?
So I really can remember that. It was in 2016. I started the first time with Instagram. I never had social media because I was always scared to have social media. And suddenly I just posted like 3 photos on Instagram. And I can remember that like an American agency, they texted me and were like, "Oh my God, you look stunning." And I was like, "Yeah, that's like scam. I don't trust you."
Mhm.
So I said that to my mom, and I also was like very often like discovered already in my street that I was studying. So in Hamburg, the street to my university, there are lots of agencies, lots of
Mhm.
model agencies, and they always said like, "Oh, Felix, you should model." So it was not the first time already. So I was thinking, okay, maybe let's experience that in Germany first before I go to the US. Although I had like already like a Zoom call back then,
Mhm.
and they were like promising like how it is like very charming in the US. They were like promising and we're like, "Oh my God, Felix, you could be a model and a superstar in the
We
US."
will
Now,
make you famous.
yeah, that's what they basically said, and they were like, "Oh my God," and I was like, "No, stop." So first, I want to experience that here. And I can remember it was in 2016 in July. It was the Berlin Fashion Week. I was very young in the beginning of my 20s, and I was booked for 2 model jobs in Berlin from an American designer. So it was a little bit like American already.
Yeah.
Um, So her name was Ashley Drapes, and it was crazy. She made like artificial stuff, like from plastic all over the body, and it looked like very like artsy. So it was my first time running the runway, and also very risky because the second catwalk, I was just wearing like a slip, and it was so small that I was like, oh my god, if the press is seeing anything, I was like so shy about it, and she was like, Felix, just go and rock the runway, and I was like, okay. So yeah, that was my start, and from then, I tried to experience even more, but first, like in Germany, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because normally, as someone who's not from the industry, I would think you have to have a lot of training, right?
Mhm.
Just walking on the runway is not just walking on the runway, and you see the difference. Even for me, as like someone who can see if one looks good walking or not, right? Maybe for male models, it's a little bit easier because you don't have to wear the heels, right? So your walk is a little bit more elegant automatically. But so before they put you on the runway, did they do any training with you or like even okay, looks is one thing, but how do you walk?
So that's a very good question because I had training. Like I can remember the first runway that I had. Um, he was a Mexican guy, super, super like passionate, and I can remember he was like, Felix, you have to do it like boom, boom, boom. And I was just standing there and I was like, okay, so being a male model is not so easy. It's not like you're not wearing high heels, so everything is nice. No, he was like, you have to like move your hips and you have to do this and that. And I was like, oh my God, can I do that? And I really can remember because I was so scared that my feet were like shaking and vibrating. So I think I got so much better during the whole time, literally.
Hmm.
And I always had that. Like normally, like the clients, they book a runway trainer. Also, like the agencies sometimes do that if you are really bad. And then you're developing, but also your agent is telling you how to walk. So sometimes you walk in the agencies, and mostly like for men, it's more like to walk more basic. Most of the male models they walk a little bit too much, so it's more like going more slow and slow down with your hips because most of the models are like a little bit too much. And
Hmm.
I think like the modern walk for a man is like very strict and very stern and very just straightforward. So that's how it is.
Wow, wow. So, when you got into the whole model thing, was it like full time, kind of like right from the start? Because I mean, you said before, like you studied law, for example, right? And like
Right.
typical German thing, like you have something in your backhand if something goes wrong and the modeling is not what you wanted. Um, how did you approach that? Was it like, okay, I really need to finish my studies so I really have a degree or something? Or is like,
Yeah.
no, I'm just following my passion, everything will be fine, which is not very German. But still, following the passions is like modern and, the go-to thing nowadays.
I would say like I was typical German because you have to imagine I was living at home
Mhm.
and I was with my mom and she was always like, Felix, you did such a good job at school. Don't throw that away.
Mhm.
Um, like always stick to studying law. So I tried to combine it. And it was also not like possible to do it like at full time right away because I was just starting. So it had to develop and it is not so easy. Like most of the models who are starting are not doing that full time. So
Mhm.
it's like a whole competition. And so first I just did it like, I studied and then I did some jobs and then I studied and it was like always like back and forth in a certain way. And that was the beginning, I would say. So yeah, very
Okay.
German.
But did you earn money with it right away, or was there a lot like, I'm booking you, but you have to make a name for yourself, so you have to do it for free for a while.
So the beginning, and that's like very transparent, was more like investing more than getting. So I
Mm-hmm.
can remember for the first runway job, I got money, but they didn't pay the train, for example. And I can remember it was like so quick. They told me 2 days before, oh, you're in. And I was like, oh yeah. And then I saw the money prices for the train. It was almost like 100, and that was like the money that I earned. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, good. Zero euros. So I just didn't really earn anything, although I should have. And so in the beginning, there was like also lots of photo shoots. They were just for free. So to show people out there how modeling works, that's the reason why you already asked that, is of course you start very like slow. That means like either you have to pay so much that it's like balanced already. Sometimes you even have to pay more, um, or you just like do it for free. And it's a bit like when you compare with a job, with an internship, I would say, like the
Mm-hmm.
first year or the second year, you have to like invest and work and work and work your ass off, and then suddenly like you have that success. And I would say it was a little bit similar with me. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I would like to talk a little bit about the mental, emotional side of it because we know that models they de- deal with a lot of pressure in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of only how because people are constantly judging you for how your body, right? What you're eating. Are you eating? When are you eating? Like you said you were very young at the beginning and at these points, I think young people are very easy to influence, and they take maybe things more personal as they should, right? It's always easy to say,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, they just said it's like a business thing, don't take it personal. But let's be honest, it's not that easy to just brush off if someone says like, you need to
Yeah.
lose 10 pounds because of, your hips are a little bit too hippie. I don't know. So, how did you deal with the pressure of looking good, of staying that way? Or, did they ever tell you like you have to go to the gym because you have to put on some muscles and like just like having a flat stomach is not everything we want?
I think we have to break that down because like immediately when I went into that modeling scene, I was only confronted with those questions. And
Hmm.
like you said, I was super young, and I would say I wasn't mentally stable at that time because I was still in my like process of getting to the direction of getting me and
Hmm.
becoming myself. And I can remember we talked about it that this American agency, they called me first. And I can remember there was this agent, and he was like, "Hey Felix," and that sentence always stick to my mind forever because the question was asked all over again. He was like, "Felix, can you take off your shirt?" And like
Hmm.
I said, I was in the beginning of my 20s. I took off my shirt. He looked at me, very judgmental, and was like, Felix, I have to tell you something. Every app that you have will bring you the dollars. And that sentence was like very, very important because like it changed the way I saw myself in a certain way because later on, like lots of journalists, they also just refer to that. They were like, "Oh, are you eating absorbent cotton and also like orange juice?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they were like, "Yeah, maybe you're throwing up and just to like become that person." And I was like, "Wow, so you like think I have like a disorder, like a eating disorder?" And later on, I would never say I had that, but I think the way I saw myself changed. So I did diets. I can remember I tested out a diet where my mom was very worried. So it's like you just don't eat um, anything unless like proteins. So
Hmm.
I can't even remember like I had really problems going to the toilet, and my mom was like worried, and she was like, Felix, are you just doing that for modeling? And I was like, yeah, because like I want to be the one who's booked. I want to have that dollars in the end of the day. So I really
Hmm.
put myself into that direction, what you were talking about, just seeing the body. And I think that was especially when I was younger.
Hmm. But I think we agree that this is not healthy, right? And I'm not your
Yeah,
mom to say that, but I think
yeah,
common sense is and I understand like if you're in that position and this is what you want to do and it's very, very deep or like only depending on how you look, then there is a pressure that you can't just ignore, right?
right.
But did you see at this point or were you aware of, okay, there is like actual health concerns that come with that. Were you aware of that and like just maybe push it aside a little bit, or was your view just totally different, kind of like a tunnel vision, like I want to make that money with that, and then I don't care what else is coming out of it?
I think I was more lightweighted back then,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. I was more like, I was young, just try it out, just try those diets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, now I remember how it's called, like ketogene diet. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like very strict, and you only so normally you do that just for like when you have like a competition or something, just like for 3 to 6 weeks, and I did it like for half a year, so way too
Wow.
much. And of course, like when I see the pictures back then, I was like, wow, the body was like insane.
Mm-hmm.
I really can remember that pictures and the test shoots that I did back then. But to answer your question, no, I wasn't aware of that. I think my mom was more than I, um, because
Mm-hmm.
I can literally
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
I was dreaming to drink, for example, sodas, and I was waking up and I felt like very bad, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? So literally, like I already had like the fear to do something wrong, eating something unhealthy. And then I realized that in a certain way. Then I realized, okay, Felix, I don't want to get into like a eating disorder. And I think it was
Mm-hmm.
like 1 or 2 years after. So I tried to did like more like a balance. And then I did it like that when I had like a runway, that I was more strict to myself. And then I tried to like, you know, make it more easy after, and eating a little bit better. So I think the older I got during my modeling, the more I tried to find a way where it's more healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that always protected me not to go into that like super unhealthy direction. And
Yeah.
also like nowadays, since I'm like 31, I'm like super aware of that. And nowadays, I'm like happy that we have that diversity more, that I also can eat more and that I can represent it and
Mm-hmm.
be like, hey, you shouldn't do that. If someone is
Yeah.
telling you that, then it's you can be healthy. That's good. You can have like a healthy body, but don't overdo it.
Hmm. What would
That's
you
not
say is the response from the brands or the designers? What are they looking for nowadays? I mean, the diversity, I think the acceptance is there in society, but
right.
then there is the point like the brands, what do they want their models to look? Because they're at the end of the day the ones who book you, right? And if they think
Right.
like I think Victoria Beckham is very judged by that because she never has like any like plus size models on her runways. She always has those very thin ones. It's like, okay, this seems like, even though she maybe says like, yeah, diversity is cool, but she
Mhm.
doesn't really reflect it because she's not booking models that represent that, right? What is your view, or what do you think how the industry responds nowadays, especially like when they book the models?
Well, I think although I would be happy if we would have more diversity, it's still like in the process of that washing thing, like diversity washing. So lots
Hmm.
of brands are booking models still to have that stereotype to say, oh, we have that one person who has like a little bit more weight, we have that one person who has a different color, one person who's maybe a little bit more queer. It's still like that because, like, the reality, if you go to Paris to all those important shows, you only see very thin models. And also, like,
Hmm.
when you go to the designers, they basically just designed for that body type. So
Mhm.
it's more still like a show thing going on. So to just like, say, oh, we had that. And then the designer is just designing that for that person who has a little bit more weight. So
Mhm.
my wish would be that it's becoming more to like a thing that is like usual and that it's happening every day, but it's not. And I have to be honest, like when you look behind the curtain, it's still like you will be still that model who is like better in their eyes. It's not in my eyes. So I would,
Mhm.
like I said, like my wish is different. But in their eyes, it's still like when you go to the agency, they would tell you, have a thin body, have a like a six pack, and be like, perfect in shape. That's what they tell you. Or,
Mhm.
and that's funny, they're like, if you want to become a curvy model, then you have to have that perfect curvy body. So it's like you can't be in between. So if you have like a normal body, they're like, oh, you have to decide now. Do you want to be curvy or do you want to be that thin model? So
That's
you
crazy.
see, it's still like there are like very static, measurements that you have to fulfill.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And that's
crazy.
not diversity.
It's
That's
so
not.
it's so black and white. It's like there is nothing in
Yeah.
between, as you just said. Like normally,
Right.
they should represent models that are actually representing the society, and
But,
there is like people in different shapes and forms and colors, right? So like, why
right.
do you, it's, I mean, we could go on and on about that all day, but the thing is like our opinion and what they actually want to change, right?
Right.
Um, Felix, I would like to switch the conversation a little bit to more like you wrote a book, which I think
Yeah.
is pretty interesting. The book is, as far as I know, like more about like you when you were like the first model, I think, in Germany who went on the red carpet with a skirt or a dress, right?
Right.
So how how did that work, and how was it accepted or viewed on?
I would try to combine what I already said with my past, back to the day
Hmm.
when I was wearing that skirt, because now comes a very important message. Before that, I always modeled and I tried to model, and I was never so successful um, that I become like a model who was like known or something, because I always tried to be like the others. And I
Hmm.
that's what we were talking about. I always try to have that perfect body. I always try to be that perfect male model. I looked into that magazines and I was always like focused to be like others. And I
Hmm.
was always asking myself, why am I not able to be that model? And then someday I was like, I give it a fuck. I was like, no, I don't want to be that way anymore. I was seeing that girls, and sometimes I was identifying with my female side, and I was like, what if I go to a casting for girls? What if
Hmm.
I embrace myself and be like, hey, I want to wear that skirt. I want to have that outfit. So I started going to Germany to like female castings. And I was like, oh, just try. And then first I can remember like a designer literally told me, what are you doing here? I'm just looking for girls. And I just like responded sassily. I was like, I can wear that better. so so
Wow.
so I was like very confident and I did that over and over again. And I remember a sentence by Tyra Banks. She was saying all the time, it doesn't matter how many no's you get, but after 100 no's, when you get the first yes, it will change the whole future. And
Hmm.
then I remember there was this designer that's like my breaking point in my career. His name is David Tomaszewski. He's one of the biggest designers in Germany who's doing Fashion Week. And he was like, oh yeah, you can wear that bridal skirt and
Hmm.
I want you to wear that. And I was like, okay, there's the first one who didn't say no. Who's the
Hmm.
first one who was like, yeah, let's do it. Maybe it's crazy, maybe it's like different, but maybe that's how we should do that to show that we can be who we are.
Yeah.
And then I remember it was on a rooftop, and they were like all girls, all wearing those very like beautiful dresses, beautiful gowns. And then at the end of the show, the last model is ending the show. It's like an honor to do that. It's always with a bridal thing going on. And then there was not a girl, there was
It was
me.
you in a dress.
Me in a dress. And I can remember I saw the crowd, and normally you're just looking straight, and I did the same. But like with my eyes, I could see the silhouettes a little bit, and the people were like shocked. It was like, oh my God, what is going on? Like literally, and then we talked about it in Germany. It's like we are all so conservative. We are all like so like strict in
Yeah.
a certain way. And first it was like silence and whispering, and then suddenly I turned around and everyone was standing up and was like applauding, and they did it not before in the show, they just did it
Mhm.
like for me, and I was like, wow, something is happening. And
That's
the
so
next
cool.
day, and that was the most like extraordinary part about that, the next day I woke up, I went to a grocery store, and I was like seeing myself on 8 newspapers, like on Bild, for example, it's the biggest one. I was on Bild. I was like on the FATS. It's like a very good
Mhm.
one also in Germany, and I was like, is
Holy
this
cow.
is is this happening right now? So I bought all those magazines. I had like such a big like so many magazines in my hands, and I was like, okay, I have to call my mom. I have to call my
You
my
probably
my
already saw it. Like you didn't, if you probably picked up the phone, it's like, what? I saw it. Oh my goodness.
It was crazy, and I was like, okay, this appearance, it made an impact.
Hmm.
And Tyra Banks was right. After that, I was constantly booked in female shows wearing like crazy stuff, which is normally not by society like meant to be for a male model. And I try to, you know, destroy those stereotypes in a good
Hmm.
way.
Yeah, I love this, especially because the idea came from you, right?
Yeah.
You would normally think like, okay, the deciding part here is the designer who wants to put that skirt on you, right? So he is like the decision maker. But the fact that you came up with this first, and you came up with the idea like, I'm just going to female castings and see what I'm getting. Like it's freaking amazing, and I love it. So
No.
to have the courage to just run against a industry that is so um uh, let's say functional, practical, everything has to go a certain way, like women wear dresses and men have to walk a certain way, or like um they were always creative in terms of how they designed the clothes, like in every different shape or form, artistic, like very business casual or whatever, but they never really seemed like experience, okay, what can we do with the models actually? Let's, put something like industry on top and let a man wear a skirt. So I think that's
Right.
awesome. So what was the feedback? Obviously I think the press went wild, right? And they were like,
Yeah.
what the hell is this? But cool. And I think that when I understood it right, it was also like catapulted you in the whole TV sphere, because you're a TV host. You signed for a very well-known German TV, was it talk show?
Yeah.
Johannes Bekerner, right? Tell us a little bit more about that. What was the result of the whole wave you were riding?
So when we start from that point that I becoming truly myself and I was so confident to like just be me, after that, like the designers in Germany went also crazy. And I think it was also like they
Mhm.
they influenced each other, the media and the designers definitely, because like the designers were like, oh my God, so many newspaper articles, so many TV like
Mhm.
broadcasters talked about him. And so I was booked so often that I can remember from that day, I wasn't able to do the law thing anymore.
Mhm.
I can remember I even write my final thesis. My in Germany it's called Hausarbeit. Um, in a hotel room because I was so busy. I was literally writing it like when I was working.
Mm.
I had so many jobs in a row. I can remember that I had like 10 runway jobs in just one week, like boom, 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 boom. And it's very extraordinary because normally you're not so booked for like runway. And then suddenly also I woke up and like TV stations like RTL or like also ZDF or RLD, like they're like super known in Germany. It's like similar to
Mm.
ABC. They were like, this guy is the most booked male model in Germany. He is like
Mhm.
everywhere at the moment. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? So like my phone was like literally ringing every day. I can remember that. I had like every week, like two or three like TV teams at home. Suddenly this whole home was like reported everywhere. Like my grandma got into that, my mom got into that, everyone was like talking. And I had to talk about my life. I had to talk about everything. And it was like new to me and overwhelming. And it happened just in 1 year. And
Mhm.
what you said, like suddenly, like also, I got like this book contract to talk about my life. I was invited to like talk shows to talk about me. And I was like, okay, wow, I think what I did is like so extraordinary in Germany. And I was in a talk show, what you said, like, and also like I got like an email from the author of Johannes Bekerner, and he was like, "Hey, you are different. You can talk. You have that potential. You look so different.
Mhm.
Let's talk." And
Mhm.
I was literally like talking with him and like his manager, and they were like, "We see potential that you become someday like a really cool TV host and having your own show." And I was meeting then like half a year later, Johannes Bekerner, who is like super big in Germany, so like a really big TV host. And
Mhm.
I felt so honored that I was seen. I was seen by such a guy and seen by his whole team that they said, like, Felix, you have something like inside of you which is shining. And
Mhm.
that is so emotionally for me because like when you see my whole story that I always wanted to be someone else because I felt wrong in my sexuality, because I felt wrong by society. And suddenly I pushed that button and said to myself, do I always want to live that other life? No,
Mhm.
I want to be myself. And I started to wear the bridal skirt. And from that moment, suddenly people were seeing my true colors. And
Mhm.
suddenly, like, people were like, you will be successful. And that's like my message. I'm like, when you try to want to be someone else, I think you can't be successful. When you are yourself and when you are confident and when you becoming that part of you, that missing part, then suddenly people are like, wow,
Yeah.
that's you. And that's like how it is, like very like condensed.
Yeah. What I think is interesting is the news the news station where Johannes Bekerner is hosted is like it's not like he like entertainment like TMZ or
Right.
something. Like it is a very conservative, it's more like t targeted towards like older people, right? And so I think
Yeah.
that they put you on that channel is just showing how much they understand now they cannot run like they always ran before.
Yeah.
To, keep up with society. Um, that is, I think big, and that's something that where you can pat yourself on your shoulder and say, like, you turned the newsroom just by wearing that dress, and that is a big deal. So okay, so now, so you had this amazing, career already in Germany, and oh yeah, before we move on to the US, your grandma is famous too. You said she is one of the
Right.
biggest grandma TikTokers in Germany, right?
Right.
Tell us. That's just wild.
Yeah, so what I said, like lots of TV stations were coming at home and they were like talking about me, and my grandma was always there and was like very accepting. And we started already a little bit social media with her back then because she was complaining and she was like, Felix, I can't follow your journey and I want to see everything. So we gave her Instagram first and she wanted to like post a video. And
Mhm.
that first video with me and her went viral already. And I was like, oh, I think the way it is with her, it would be probably bigger for TikTok because like
Mhm.
TikTok is for younger people. And I think what she's doing is kind of crazy too. She's like, you know, nowadays 87, almost 88, and she's singing like little songs of like childhood memories. So I gave her TikTok, and the second video already got super viral, like over 100,000 views. And I think the fourth one was already like 1 million or something. And she had already 20,000 followers. And then there was this TV team, and it was also like a conservative TV broadcaster. It was NDR, so it's like a little bit like RID. And they were like, oh, maybe we should also like show her. Maybe we should show her a story. And then she got like super famous super fast. Like nowadays she has 200,000 followers almost, and like so many views. It's crazy, like 3 million on her latest video, for example. And she was also on talk shows. She was talking about her like whole life, and just to make it short, we found out that we have similarities. Like she was she always wanted to become a singer. She even like did like she even sent an application to like a TV show back then. She was 14, but her mom said, "No, no, no. I wanted to go to school. There, it's again the German path." And she was like, "No, I don't want that." So she always was sad about that, not fulfilling her dreams, not becoming herself. And she was able to do that with me because I was that shining star who was like, "Grandma, be yourself, be
Yeah,
yourself."
that
And
is
I kind of like make her shine too. And
awesome.
then we both shine. And we are such a good team. We are doing social media. We are also having our business thing together, and earning money together. And that's like kind of cool. She's understanding my world since then even better because she knows how journalists are working. She knows how jobs are working. And yeah, I think what you said, I want to say one comment also to the TV broadcasters, because my grandma and I, we are seen very often in those conservative ones for older ones. I think it's also making me proud that I'm in that section, although I'm open for everyone because I don't want to be like just in that one section, but still it's like a huge step for Germany. Um,
Hmm.
and I think also as a team, it's sometimes working even better because like I feel like people see my grandma and they're like, oh, she's an old conservative person and she likes Felix. So she's the channel for those old people
Kind of
towards
like a
me.
gatekeeper.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, when she accepts Felix, then we can do it also." So
Hmm.
she's like a role model for all those other people, and then they see me and they're like open for that. And it's not like a punch in your face. It's more like, "Oh, we do it more soft and show it to the others." Mm, so yeah, it's so cute. And I remember also being at that show last year. It's called A Heart for Children, and I was also wearing that skirt, that like a very long skirt. And there were like so many children, and they just looked at me and were like, "Wow, you look."
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
children, they don't have that judgmental look. They just say it what they feel. And I think that was such a nice thing to show on TV, that we can be who we are. And I'm very thankful for that.
I love it. I love it. I think it's really, really cool what you guys built there, especially because it comes with a mission. You're not just famous for being famous. Like there is really a message behind it. And, I think it's a combination of how you did it, why you did it, with whom you did it, where you did it. It's kind of like the whole bubble, and that just fits so good. And I think that's why it's working, and it's very inspirational for, first, obviously, people like you and your age to say, like, okay, look, I can have a voice in the fashion industry. I can come out with something that I think is not only controversial, but it could maybe open up a door for me, like, like
Right.
you decided to come out with a skirt. But then also to talk openly about it and, not just be like the clothing hanger like you are with a lot of models. They're just like the canvas for the dress, and then that's it, right? But
Right.
to actually build a brand as a model, I think is a big challenge, and it has to be something that lasts forever, right? You can't just, be like I think we say like a one-day fly, where you're like famous for the moment, and then you have your 15 minutes of fame, and then that's it. But
Right.
I think you found a way to, stay relevant in the industry, in the media, but also for yourself and your community, right? Um, so I think that's pretty awesome. Um,
Thank you.
okay, let's move forward. You are now successful in Germany. You made a name for yourself, and then you decide, let's start everything from scratch again in the US.
Right.
So how's that working for you? Because I think no one really knew you here, maybe besides a couple, model agencies. But it's and correct me if I'm wrong, but like between the designers and like fashion shows, and so you weren't really known here, right?
This is correct. I want to divide it in two parts. First, we have to go back in time before I become that gender fluid model.
Hmm.
Before I was nominated by GQ Germany. There was this time we talked about it. I was in Berlin. I started my career, and then I was like, okay, this American agency, they wanted me so bad, so let's go over there. Let's go to LA and just like say hello.
Hmm.
And I talked with my mom about that. She was very concerned, and she was like, "Oh my God, my son is going so like so far away from my country, and he was never. I never flew by myself to a different continent, and
Hmm.
like, oh no, oh no." So I can remember we both looked up for an Airbnb. So she was like, "Can you just find out if you like it and don't
Hmm.
do something too much?" So we really looked for, I can remember, for a woman who was taking care of me, and she was texting her. She was like, "Please be in my age and take care of Felix, and please
Oh
text
my
me." And it was like, oh my God, this is so German again, like so
Yeah.
protecting. So we did that. I had that fake mom who was taking care
How
of me.
old were you then? How old were you?
I was 23.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 23, but still it's still young, I would
It's
say.
a big deal to go. I mean, when I moved to the US, I was 30, and honestly, I thought I was ready, but when I came here, I was absolutely not. It's a different life. And you
I
can't
was so
call mom and say, "Mommy, I'm coming home. I will be there in 3 hours." Like, no, that's it. You have to power through.
I realized that when I was there, like I literally was homesick already after 2 weeks and called my mom and cried. It was too much. It was like the whole culture there is so different. And I was
Yeah.
like hitting my boundaries so fast. I was like, oh my God. And also what you have to think, I was not outed back then. I was still having that whole package with me. But coming back to the point of if I was known or if I start from scratch. So um, I went to that agency and they took my measurements and so on, but they didn't pick me. So I was kind of sad. And I, on the other hand, like I was. I was like, so I like the idea of being there. So in Germany, you would say you lick the fresh blood or something like, I don't know, like
Yeah. Yeah. You have the first taste of blood, and then you can't put it down.
right, and it was like that. So I got ambitious and I went back to Germany. I was like, Mom, I wanted to try it. So let's be there for longer. And I want to try to become that model in the US. So I went back and I realized it was like a two thing because like on the one hand I was outed then. The second time I said to my mom, "Oh mom, I have to tell you something." So it was a
Mhm.
big step also in the direction of becoming myself because it was easier in LA. It was so easy. It's like people were open. I was confronted with people who were gay, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Just do it. Then I got my first
It is so
boyfriend.
interesting that you say that it's easier in LA because we assume it's more difficult, right? But
Yeah,
it's just like I think the culture, and I can testify to that because I live in LA. But it's very normal to be different, to be gay. Like there was
super
like
normal.
a whole like neighborhood in LA where it's like you see rainbow flags everywhere. Like you can walk, as a gay person with just, like a crop top and like no one's
Right.
judging you because it's normal. You could never do that in Germany.
Never, like literally never. And that's why I was like that. It was easy. When I was there, I saw so many gay people, obviously gay people, and I saw
Mhm.
that they're like happy, and I think that made me more comfortable, and that was the reason why I did that step. And I got my first boyfriend back then, and of course it was a little bit like pressuring because he was like, I don't know if I can do like long distance, so I had that pressure on my shoulders, so I wanted to become that model, but I also wanted to be that private person who's like fulfilling a little
Mhm.
bit because I was young. So nowadays I would say no, 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 no. But back then I was like, oh, I want to be here. I want to be with you. So I went from model agency to model agency, and now comes reality check, the big reality check, because so many model agencies they were like, oh, you are definitely the type that we want. And I have to explain that because like in the US, especially like on the west coast where we are, um, you don't have so many blonde blue-eyed guys who are very
Mhm.
tall, so I'm very unique and exotic in that way. So lots of agencies that were like, wow, your look is amazing, but it's very expensive to buy or to like to offer like a visa. So
Mhm.
um, most of them they were just like saying, oh, thanks for coming, and it was literally like I was almost crying because like I went for 2 weeks every day from model agency to model agency, and I was like, maybe I'm not worth it, maybe I'm not the one. And I can remember like my ex-boyfriend, he was pressuring me so much. He was like, oh, you have to get one, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing right now? So it was like, I think my second last agency, I was almost like not having any like hope anymore.
Mhm.
The agency is called Envy Models and Beverly Hills, and I think they're not existing anymore. But back then, I was there. I remember the walk. I remember the guy that I was seeing, and then I got like a call, and I was like, I can remember I was in a diner with friends, and they were like, "Hey, is there Felix?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we talked about it, and we would offer you a contract with our model agency and give you further information about the visa process and so on. And
That is all.
I was like, is this
Too
happening?
good, too good to be true. Like, really? Where's the catch?
Is this happening? Is this now true? So then I was right away, and you see how dependent I was. I was right away like calling my ex-boyfriend. I was like, "Oh my God, I can stay here," and so on. But later on, I have to tell you a little bit more about that. And then I called my mom, and now it's so typical again. She was like crying on the phone, and she was like, "No, I hope you won't get that visa because I'm losing my son. I don't want to lose my son."
Yeah. I love you, but I don't want you to go, and I want you to
Yeah.
have success, but I don't.
Oh, so crazy. So then I was happy, and the agency they before everything started, they already sent me to LA Fashion Week the first time, and I was also getting experiences, although it didn't really start at first. And then I was already like thrown in the water, and that was the first time, because you asked about it, when I was confronted with like media and with
Mhm.
press suddenly, and some like my manager, he was like, "Oh, this is Felix. This is Felix," and I'm like, "Wow, I'm standing next to like people who are like more famous." So
Mhm.
I can remember I was standing to like an actress she was playing in Teen Wolf. It was like a very famous show back then, a little bit similar to Vampire Diaries or something like that.
Mhm.
So I was like, wow, cool. Suddenly I'm standing next to those people. Um, so yeah, that was the thing back then.
Were you, did you feel prepared because you already were famous in Germany, so you knew how it is when media is like, reporting or writing things about you? I think that was probably, or I would assume it was kind of good preparation for what could happen in the US. I mean, we know that the US is blowing things up like, way bigger
Right.
than Germany would do it. But also, that could go either way. Like they could write good about you, but they could also tear you apart because you are different. How was your mental state back then? Like the expectation on like, okay, I have to deliver now here. I see that there is some movement going. There is like some, were you nervous about where this could go?
Like I said, I divided it in two parts. Back then, when I was there for the first time, I wasn't known in Germany at all. So I wasn't prepared and I was just innocent and just talked, I would say. I just talked and talked and talked. And I think the good thing is I wasn't known. So I didn't really got like so much attention and I wanted to be someone else. Like I said, like I wanted to be masculine. And so I think back then it was okay to be maybe all over the place and it was like a playground like a kindergarten. I was able to like just try to see what is happening. um but now we can step forward because then there was COVID and you know how it was and I wasn't been able to be there and then there was this thing what we talked about that I become famous in Germany. And then comes the time when I got back to LA. And now becomes like interesting because like suddenly, because of my impact in Germany, I was invited to like very bigger things like the United Nations, for example. And I got like TV interviews suddenly. And I was standing there and now comes your question. And it was different. I was nowadays I'm thinking more, I want to be someone who's raising the voice and saying stuff which is important and not just like trash. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like not just only talking, blah, 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 blah. I'm just like, for example, if someone is like interviewing me, I want to say something which influence the people in the right way. So I'm like literally thinking before I talk, and that's
Mm-hmm.
like important. And that's the way it changed, definitely. Like nowadays, I would say the Felix who's in LA now, um, takes all the knowledge from the past that I went through and is also able to influence like American society, especially because like in the US, the country is working differently. And I feel like although we have those celebrities like Harry Styles, for example, who is also doing gender fluid stuff, it feels like when you go on the streets, there is still so many things to talk about it, like mental health, for example. Like people, they are not stable. And I think I could be like a role model for them. And I realized that when I was at the Nations, for example, I was the only man who was wearing a skirt and
Mm-hmm.
everyone was wearing bow ties and it was again the same picture. It was
Mm-hmm.
again the same thing. I was like standing there and I was like, here we go again.
Here we go again.
I think I have to talk about it. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's also how we met because
Yeah.
like you were probably also like, oh, he's looking different maybe.
Yeah.
He's
I mean, you didn't have a skirt on, but
that,
what I learned about the last couple, you sense a personality, right?
yeah,
And it's just the way you talk to people. It's the way that, what I think is very impressive about you is that, again, you are not just like a clothing rack, right? You are going out like, yes, the modeling is like, one of your channels, but I think the secret nowadays, especially in the US, to build a personal brand that lasts longer than a trend, which is, pretty famous for the fashion industry, you have to bring something with you that is not only different, but that's relevant, right?
right,
And if you are a model or not, if you're in the fashion industry or not, you don't have to be gay to be different. You could be like someone who is, a very nerd, for example, or someone who is, just, I don't know, into gothic stuff and you love to dress
Right.
black all day and like have a white face and like it doesn't matter what it is. The whole point is about, what you tell or teach those people is you can be different without without feeling wrong, right? And you
Right.
have to be prepared to be judged. You have to be prepared to, maybe defend yourself because people will not like what they see or how you talk or
Yeah.
what you're talking about. But and that comes back like the full circle, like Tyra Banks said, it just takes one person who said, like, whatever you said today, it just made my day, and tonight I can sleep good. Then the mission is fulfilled, right?
And this is correct. Like, I can remember because we are talking also internationally. Um, this year I was with a TV team from the TV broadcaster DW. It's the German one who's like translating everything in English, Spanish, and so on. So
Mhm.
I also transmitted um, to the US, so people saw me there, and it was like the first time when people commented on the internet, also from other countries. And I remember I translated literally everything. Normally, you shouldn't do that. Like, don't read all the comments. It's all normally bad, but I did. So, like, I remember like there were 10,000 English comments. There were 10,000 Spanish comments. Like, literally in every section of every country, there were so
Mhm.
many comments. And the TV station, they told me, "Wow, you are someone who like blew up the internet with your story." And it was not always nice. Like, so many people
Mhm.
were like, "He's mentally sick. He is weird. Maybe go to therapy or something like that." And I saw, and that's like important. I saw that it's so that I'm so different and that I'm maybe also giving anxiety. But I think, and that's the thing about it, people they don't reflect themselves and they
Mhm.
just carry that side inside of them. And the
Mhm.
people that I like shouting the loudest, they have that side and they are just jealous that they can fulfill their dreams and that they can live openly. And it's a little bit sad that they are like that. So I'm always commenting under it. I'm like, hey, um, I still wish you a nice day and give you a hug. So I give them even love and I
Mhm.
don't give them hate. And that's a very important message. Although I got so much hate, I never react back with hate and I don't throw bullets against them and I don't shoot. And I think like this is the best way to deal with that. Although it's sometimes hard, sometimes I'm reading them and I'm like, "Ugh, today I feel vulnerable. Today I feel like it hit me harder than another day." But I'm proud of myself. And like, I think people who got to know me better, they said once a very important sentence. They said, like, your superpower, Felix, is being vulnerable and that you wear your heart like on a sleeve and
Mhm.
that you are able to communicate what's inside of you.
Mhm.
And I think that's what society misses a lot at the moment, that they're like so like behind a curtain, that they hide their feelings behind a fortress. And I think I'm the one who's like carrying a key and I'm going to the people. And even if I just touch that one person, and that's what you said about Tyra Banks, even if I just touch one person and be able to open up the door, then it's a success already what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I try to open up with my key like so many doors as possible. And hopefully one day we live in a society where everyone can be who they are and can shine and truly show their colors.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's amazing. I really envy you because I'm an emotional person. I'm a very vulnerable person. And as I just told you like 2 days ago, I shut down all my social media. You know,
Yeah.
one reason was being that because I just don't want to deal with judgment. And I know I can do it to a certain point, but then, for me it was just kind of like I really have to? Like, I mean, who is forcing me to deal with it, right? And then so there's people like you who are like, okay, I know that it's coming. and I have years of experience to deal with that. And I turned this into a superpower where I can deal with it, even though I hear it, I can read it. I'm still human though, right? It still hurts sometimes, but I'm able to deal with it in a way that um, it could benefit both of us. And then there is people like me who are like, I get it, and I understand it that people are saying the people who are saying those things, they're mostly like hurt themselves, and that's the only way. Like, they're only doing it mostly online, right? I mean, just imagine if I don't think that all of the people who gave you beef online would ever stand up to you face to face and say the exact
Right,
same things in your face, just because, online is that protection of, um,
right.
being anonymous, being
Is it?
a stranger, being not able to, receive the punch if you get one, right? Um,
Yeah,
so for me, and that's why I'm saying I'm envious, is I love that you are able to deal with this on a wide scale, on a big scale, because I know right now I couldn't. And I not just I couldn't, but also I don't want to, right? There is no reason for me to do that if there is another way for me to be more calm and, have just an easier life, right? So,
right.
Felix, I love your story. I could ask you a million more questions, honestly. We could go on with this podcast for 3 or 4 hours because I really think I love your approach to this and I love your experience. But to end this interview, please just tell us where can we find more about you? What are you doing right now? Is there anything that we can keep an eye on, maybe the next weeks, months? I know you're in Germany right now over the holidays, but what's going on in your world right now?
So you can find me always on my socials. It's very easy. Felix Nieder, my name in one sentence. Um, but yeah, what's going on? So I want to do more TV. So I always do the split part. So TV is definitely a thing which is in Germany. So that these are the things that I'm doing there. And the good thing is, like, we talked about it also in private, like, the whole impact from getting more famous, getting more known is also good for like the US definitely, and it makes it easier because like um, it would be a huge step to like when you have that all those all those things in your country back then that you can also get, for example, a green card, and that's like maybe a step that I would love to do to make it easier and also to have that half time, half LA, half Germany. That would be
Better
like
life.
yeah, but like it was always what I dreamed about. Like what I said, like COVID kind of stopped that dream again, because like you know how it is when when you're not like having like a citizenship or whatever. So I was just back then very much in Germany, and now I see that I have that impact in the US and that I want to build both sides. And
Mhm,
my dream would be like maybe to have one day like a very cute house in Santa Monica and
mhm.
house here. And so like in Germany you would say pendle, you would go you commute between those two lives, and it would be very cute. And
Yeah.
maybe
I
one
think I
day I
remember you said something about you wanted to be like Heidi Klum, which has like
yeah
her careers on both sides of the world.
yeah.
I can totally see you doing
Yeah,
that.
it would be cute, and also maybe one day like a little husband and a child or something like that would
Mhm,
be so cute. And of course, my dream is also to have like an impact in the US more and to have yeah to get more into TV scene. And I think that's possible because like my topic, what you said, is literally everywhere. So I
mhm.
could do that in every country. So let's see where yeah, the future is bringing me, but I think what you said, when I'm doing it with my heart, I think everything will be right, what I'm choosing. And I have that impact. And so let's see how many hearts I will touch in the future,
Yeah.
either in Germany, either in the US or worldwide.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you saw it in the past. It will happen, right? Like I always say, like what's meant for you will not pass you, and you've seen it in the past that those things came to you at the right time for the right reason, and then you just took it and made it your own, and then just went out in the world with your own way of living it, talking about it, doing it. So fingers crossed for your multi-jet set life in the US and in Europe. I will definitely follow your way, even though not on social media anymore. But if you're saying you do more TV, then I will see you on TV.
Or
Um,
I can text it to you.
exactly. Oh, you send it to me. Yeah, perfect.
Right.
Okay, well, Felix, thank you so much for spending the time with me, for being so open, for being so vulnerable. I really, really appreciate that. And I'm so convinced that a lot of readers, listeners can take a lot from your story. And I just love the way, you are so authentic, you are so real. I don't feel anything fake or made up or kind of like just like the highlights kind of thing. Like you show how it is, how challenging it is, but also how you can, make lemonade out of lemons. So I love it.
Yeah, I think it's like so important to be transparent. And that's like the most important part, also, what I learned. When you're transparent and honest to yourself, then you can grow. And
Hmm.
I remember that one thing, when I was younger, I always tried to be perfect and always I never talked about my mistakes. I never talked about my insecurities. And
Hmm.
nowadays, I'm like, hey, yeah, I didn't earn money back then. I was just doing test shoots. It was like hard to go to all the agencies. There was COVID, and I was just like not earning money anymore. And was just stuck. And then there was this time when everything changed, and I became the gender fluid model. And I think
Hmm.
it's important to be true and not to make things different in a certain way, or to like, say different stuff, which is not like the reality. And I think if you confront yourself with reality, then you always can get a better version of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. It was really fun. If you guys want to learn more about Felix, follow his Instagram. Do you have a website, felixnieder.com or something?
This is also correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is Felix Nieder.
Okay, everything
It's
Felix
super
Nieder, you
simple.
will find that one right person. And I will be in touch with you. I will be following you. And I wish you a very good evening because you're in Hamburg right now.
And a big heart.
And a big heart, always the hearts. Okay, bye, Felix.
Bye.